and my name is Paul with the Business Club. We're going to have JT Foxx joining us shortly in about 5 minutes. So what I wanted to do while we're waiting is that I wanted to play that video because I want to show basically what his coaching is all about. And he's very successful business owner, entrepreneur. I'll be introducing him in a bit. And JT, he's a coach as well as a business and wealth coach. He also was doing the speaking tours as well. And he's a real estate investor, private equity investor. And he's actually originally from Canada. So he was born in Montreal, then moved to Toronto. He started off doing some waiter jobs, and I was having a hard time with that. I think he mentioned he got fired from about 14 different waiter jobs. And he also had a tough time growing up. Like, he had a stutter and was bullied a bit too. So then he basically he had like $938 in his pocket. He moved out to Chicago, and that's where he basically started from scratch. So like self-made multimillionaire now, and he started trying to flip some real estate properties. Started off with, it was like basically a real estate deal that went bad, and luckily he learned a lot from that situation, and luckily was able to get a referral to actually do some other real estate jobs, and then eventually build up his real estate empire. Got into then coaching, and started wanting to help others become successful. So he joined the international speaking tour. So he speaks with the likes of like the Jack Canfields and Bob Cattell. He's also had many celebrity guests on his show, like everyone from Arnold Schwarzenegger to Jack Welch, Kathy Ireland, and Steve Wozniak, who was the Apple co-founder, Senator McCain, Reverend Jesse Jackson, just to name a few. He's been featured on CNBC. His signature events are the Mega Partnering, Mega Success, and is now the world's #1 wealth networking business conference, attracting many attendees from around the globe. So he has been touring around the globe. Now what he's doing with the pandemic is he's focusing on his coaching. So he actually has been doing some free coaching sessions live on Facebook, Instagram, and he actually opened up the Millionaire Flicks. So this is basically Netflix for millionaires. So those who want to become successful, learn how to do a business, he opened up. That's only $20 to get a subscription, and you get 4,000 hours of all his coaching sessions and his live interviews as well. And he's also doing a 365. So that's basically, it's almost like a journal, a millionaire journal. So each day he records himself, what's been going on that day, what's going on in the news, and provides some inspirational advice. So the clip that we heard was actually when he was in Bali and was playing a little game of football, and then decided to do a little motivational talk. So I actually did a coaching session with JD, 30-minute coaching session, and also sign up for his other program where we could actually post our podcast, our video cast. So we had our Adapt and Overcome. We posted that to his Millionaire Flicks, and that way people can actually, and I post one every day to also promote some of the local entrepreneurs here in the nation's capital. So yeah, really excited. JT will be joining us very shortly, and that actually might be him now. And there we go. So, and JT, are you there?
I am there.
Okay, perfect. Well, so thrilled to have you on with Business Club to do an interview. So I was just mentioning, you're the #1 business and wealth coach, serial entrepreneur, real estate, private equity investor, also a national bestseller. So we're thrilled to have you with us today. And you've realized a wonderful life of abundance. You've been very successful, a rags to riches story. You're a Canadian boy and then went to become a huge success in the States as now the #1 wealth and business coach. So yeah, thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. Anybody else watching? I mean, live or did it just?
What I'm doing is I'm recording this, and then we're gonna be posting it on our groups and that. So
it was make it very good. There was all these people there. So I was very impressed.
Yeah, excellent. Well, anyway, JT, so, you know, again, you were like rags to riches, very successful. So I want you to take us back to when you, you know, basically had, you know, $938, I think you said you had your, you know, just basically that you took the lead, you went to Chicago. Tell us, like, you know, what that was like to, you know, just you starting from scratch in a completely new city.
Well, don't forget, I mean, I was living in Toronto, and I probably got fired from every restaurant in Toronto. And then I went to York University, and for a degree I still haven't picked up yet. I did graduate. And I wanted to be a lawyer, but I couldn't afford it. And my whole life people said I was never a loser. I had a speech impediment. And I remember eating Toonie Tuesdays and buying like 8 or 9 of those for the week. I remember when I worked as a waiter, wasn't the greatest. I'd put my money in a green lunchbox and put them in. And then knowing that I wasn't going to go to law school because I couldn't afford it and my parents were not going to pay me back, I went into a state of depression. And I remember that, what depression felt like. I couldn't get out of bed and anything like that. And one day I saw one of those late night infomercials. And I remember it was by the Hilton Airport. And, you know, the interesting part is like, well, how many of y'all want to get rich? You know, the Americans coming in. How many of y'all want to? And I was the only one put my hand up. And the speaker said, well, for the first, you know, 15. And I was like, I'm like running to the back, right? And I remember turning around, and there was about 350 people there. And I think I was the only one. And I look back, and I'm like, whoa. And I never forgot this. Take my hand. And I'm about to back away. And the guy grabbed my hand, and he goes, if you don't do it now, you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life. That's a very powerful closing statement. So I had been a loser for the first half of my life. I didn't want to be a loser for the second half, originally from Montreal. And so I did it. And then started up, and then they basically told me it doesn't work in Canada. You need to go to America. So I left over 10 years ago with $974, pickup truck all rusted out, heading to the Buffalo border. Like, where are you going there? And I'm like, shopping. And they're like, secondary. And then went over to Chicago and had no idea. Like the culture shock, I took a turn to ask for directions in the hood. Like for us, or me growing up, the hood was Scarborough. That's not even bad, right? But Scarborough, and there's the hood. And it was like a bit, like, I don't think like as growing up in Canada, I was exposed to wealth and business and how the world works. You know, I think it's different now, especially with social media, learning, and YouTube. But back then, I never learned about. In fact, we were taught as Canadians, being rich is bad. And, you know, don't be American. Don't talk about yourself. So that process of like, I had to learn a lot of things, and that's why coaching is so important. Because my first coach there, basically, it wasn't so much how to do it; it was just how the world works. And I don't think my parents had prepared for me. I don't think school had prepared me for it. You know, my friends knew nothing about business and success, and so very different to see. And now you take a look at Canada. I mean, I had an event, 80% of the people in my room were not even born in Canada. And I don't really remember that growing up, that being the case. So Canada has become a melting pot of the entire world. So much more international, different way of thinking, a different way of doing things. And so that's kind of what I remember leaving from Canada. And then obviously everyone was cheering me not to make it. Went down to negative 34,000 1 month from having away. And then I did my first deal, made 70,000. And that was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. So, and
I remember you talking about, I was listening to your podcast about when you went to the bank and the bank manager called you in and he said, you know, JT, I mean, we can do a lot. We should be doing a lot better for you. And you asked him, like, how much do I have? And then it was like over $1 million. And you were like, that was it. Like, you ran out and you're jumping like I'm a millionaire. You called up all the people that said you were always going to be a, you know, loser and unsuccessful. And they were just, they just got pissed off, right? They weren't happy for you. Like, they weren't, it kind of bugged them
Yeah, well, I realized in that, like, let's say someone's listening to this and you don't like me for whatever reason, right? The fact that I'm Canadian, I made it, just, you know, there's really nothing I can do to change your mind, right? We live in a society where whatever our minds are made up, we're not willing to change. And Trump's a perfect example. If you like Donald Trump, everything bad about him is fake news. If you don't like Donald Trump, everything bad about him, you agree. So the lesson to all of you, it's impossible to make everybody happy. I think most of your friends and family don't want you to succeed. They love you, but they don't want you to succeed because you make them look bad. And I think in the end of the day, who you spend time with is who you become. And that's why it's very important to be part of your business club and being with like-minded individuals like that. And don't forget, I mean, you're in Ottawa, so you have a very much of a federal government mentality, a very different mentality than Quebec, and a very different mentality than Ontario, meaning like Toronto per se, because the mentality is, you know, just get a job, go to school and stuff like that. But there's plenty of opportunities. There's plenty of great people. So, you know, when people think of Ottawa, it's a bunch of government workers. It's not the case, of course.
Yeah, no, I was actually, I was speaking to he was a former broker from Bay Street in Toronto, and I was talking to him, he said, like, Ottawa's like the worst, absolute worst town to you know, start a business, and like, well, he actually said Eastern Ontario. And so what is it about, you know, what's different between doing, you know, starting a business in Canada versus the US in terms of like the people you initially spoke to said, okay, you got to move to the US. What's the difference there in the mentality?
Most of the Canes I know that go into America do extremely well, because number one, we're more relational based. In America, it's like, buy this, buy this, buy this. You know, there's not that, and we do very well. I think you take a Canadian, you expose them to the United States, they realize we're no different, right? Everybody likes us. And then when you come back, you just think that much bigger. I mean, the average, if you earn, I mean, that might go down this year because of the coronavirus, but last year, if you earned $433,000 a year, you're in the top 1% income earning, okay? In Canada, it's 257,000 Canadian, by the way, right? I mean, I find it so easy to make money in Canada because I was like, ooh, hey there, ooh, hey, you could calm down, huh? Don't, you know what I mean? So there's that mentality of waiting or having a job and go to school and getting a cottage. And we live in a new world, right? I mean, if you love what you do, you never retire. But I do believe one of the most important things is relational capital. Relationship. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you. And that's why I'm such a big fan of business clubs like yours, and why I agreed to be on the show, because you're the guy who links the best together, right? Because we just get stuck and too busy. Like, you should spend 70% of your time building and monetizing relationship, you know, being part of the club, connecting with your network, just like you did with me. 20% coming up with marketing and branding ideas, and then 10% knowing your numbers. That's how you ought to spend your time as an entrepreneur.
Now, I want to ask you, JT, I mean, you've also been incredibly successful, and you're giving back now, coaching other business owners to help them achieve success. If you had to do it again, like back to when you moved to Chicago, what would you do differently today if you had to do it all again?
Well, so technically my residence is in Florida. I live the Eastern Canada dream, to have a house in Florida in the winter. At least growing up in Montreal, that was the dream. So I had a house on the water in Florida, but nothing. I mean, I would have got a coach sooner. I mean, that would have been, you know, and I wouldn't have been so worried about how much things cost, rather how much it's going to make me. You know, as a lot of people say, oh my God, they're selling courses or buying courses. Well, I don't see them say that about York University. I spent, what, 3 years, $21,000, $22,000 at York University. What'd that do for me? Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So school is a safety net. But most of us don't even major. Like, what am I going to do with a political science degree? Right? And that's why entrepreneurism to me is just your control of your own destiny. Business is a game. And if your days are the same thing, that's because you're working in your business rather than on your business.
Mm-hmm. Now, you talk a lot in your videos about, you know, things like, you know, mindset, focus, having a detailed plan, you know, plan for your business, a detailed schedule, having discipline, and also compartmentalizing things. And I also want to ask you about, especially like when negative things happen, you talked about compartmentalizing that. And I noticed that obviously the bigger you get, and you said this too, then that you get a lot of haters and a lot of people, you know, attacking you and that. And I think you've had even create a website saying, you know, the real JT or who is JT and that. So how do you deal with, you know, the negative, obviously with your incredible success, how do you deal with that negativity and that those haters that, you know, that might troll you on social media?
Well, first of all, whoever's trying to bring you down is below you. That's the first thing. Losers focus on winners. Winners focus on winners. I've never seen successful people just randomly go troll people. Usually people who attack you, they're either jealous or they can't do what you do, so they want to try you down by making up fake stuff. And that website you talk about, somebody actually did 5-6 years ago, because I had made so much money at such a young age that people didn't believe it. So now it's not that. Now it's a different type of stalking. You know, I have stalkers, like serious ones, who, which is why I'm very private, because they just twist everything. The whole culture online on YouTube is, let's talk bad about someone so they can get views. And it used to bother me a lot, because obviously too, it's one thing if it's like true, but when it's not true, that's the point, right? I think you need to accept it, is that there's a lot of room at the top, it's the bottom that crowded, and the higher you climb up the tree, the more your butt is exposed. That's just part of it as well. If nobody's criticizing you, you're not doing enough. And look at Trump. I mean, look at all the people who don't like Trump. But if 46% of the people like you, you're president of the United States, right? So it's even Amazon has 71% rating. You know, look at all the things about Bill Gates right now. I mean, that man is getting hammered. There's a man who's donated most of his wealth and dedicated his life to the Bill Gates Foundation. People twist things and do things, and it's just, we just can't live in a society where we just agree to disagree. If we disagree with someone, we hate them. We talk bad about them as well. That is why I like your show, this show here, and your club are outlets of positivity. I think it's time for you guys to make an assessment and rate everyone in your life A, B, C's, and D's. A, super positive, push you, inspire you, people like you. B, neutral, not negative, not positive. C, someone negative. D, super negative. It's time to get rid of the C's and D's in your life, because they're killing your inspiration. They're killing your momentum.
Okay, no, thanks, Sharon. Now, on Saturday, you're doing a real estate show with Paulie, and I was wondering if you could just give us an idea of, like, obviously you're a multimillionaire. What would your portfolio look like today? Like, what percentage would be approximately in real estate? What percentage would be private equity? Like, what is that? What percentage in stocks? Like, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, stocks is very small because I don't like gambling, but I do. The problem is I have a lot of cash, so that's rich people problems. So I'm pretty well diversified. I believe never putting your eggs in one basket. I make millions and millions of dollars a month without working. But I'm working now harder than I ever did, because to me, as I said this the other day, it's not real. Like, what I mean, like, the money's there, I don't see it. So it's passive, right? The definition of passive is how do you make money without working? So I'm like working hard to see something, because it's not real. To me, passive is just there. Money doesn't drive me anymore. After my first 8 million, it didn't bother me anymore. I mean, I was like 27, made my first million at 24, first 10 million at 28. It didn't bother me. Like, I don't do anything for money anymore. And it's been that for a long time. It's the challenge in the game. So I believe, but you got to start with one thing. So the idea is you got to take one thing and you got to be really good at make a lot of money of it. And then you take that money to invest in yourself into this thing to grow even bigger. And then this thing is not worth going any bigger because you lose scale. You have a lot of employees, a lot of people. It's not worth it unless you want to. And then you take that money and then you invest it elsewhere. And you realize that you actually make less money investing elsewhere than you do in yourself. You are the greatest ROI. And I just thought about this. For this guy who said on Bay Street that, Ottawa is not very entrepreneur. The most valuable company in the world is in Ottawa, Shopify. Yeah.
It's just about to get a larger market cap than RBC now.
It did yesterday.
Yeah.
I know everything about everything.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So I was wondering if now do you just kind of curious about your person, like you're married, have kids?
Yeah, I never discuss my personal life. There's some have these stalkers that take a look at that.
Okay.
Never ever.
So I'll get. And you have talked about you've had to help your.
It's just kind of like almost like the Gary Vee thing, because we live in a world. Nothing you can do can hurt me. You understand? But what people do now is they'll hurt family and friends. I have my clients that get attacked because you can't hurt me. They try to attack my clients, and it's just such a very bad. People are bad. You know what I mean? Like. The interesting thing is you think this coronavirus would bring us together, but it really hasn't. It's brought winners like us together. I didn't know who you were a week ago. And look, now I'm on your show and I've coached you and I think you're phenomenal. And I would have met you in person if I had gone to the event that got canceled, and then look at this. Like, I know who you are. It's been a week. I have 26,000 clients in the world, 91 countries. I'm in 54 myself. And I know who you are and what you're about. And we've even communicated on social media, which I've responded directly. Right. And so to me, you're the type of person like, you don't think like most people. Forget the Canadian part. You don't think like most people, which is why you're a winner. And people are very blessed to have someone like you to lead them. And I always tell people, like, my story, how I went from Canada to America is irrelevant, because it's, who cares what I did? It's what you do for your clients, because everybody's story is differently. I've never showcased planes and cars, all of which I have or could have. It doesn't drive me. I think that and that's the thing in Canada, they don't really care as much, but the younger generations are growing up saying it. Like, it's really stupid to have a Ferrari or a Lambo in Toronto or Ottawa, right? You drive it maybe 2 months out of the year. Can't drive it 4 months because it got potholes and everything. You got the snow, you pay the insurance all year round. Your tune-up is $15,000 a year. All that so you can go to a restaurant and be that a-hole who, like, you know, parks in front of everyone. Like, it doesn't, and it devaluates 20% the minute you take it off the lot, right? I think investing in our business, investing in ourselves, and never looking at how much things cost, but looking at how much it's going to make. The greatest ROI I've ever had was coaching. It's the best investment I've ever had.
Yeah. And I recently watched the Wall Street movie, Money Never Sleeps, and there's one scene where he asks him, you know, what's your number? Like, what number? How much money would you need to walk away? And he says more. And I was wondering, I mean, what's your what would you say? What would you say is your why for doing what you do? And do you have kind of like an ultimate goal? Like, do you want to be a billionaire one day? Do you have any? Like,
I mean, listen, billion is a game. I've always said I want to be a billionaire. People say, what are you gonna do with a billion? I'm gonna give it away to charity as well. But I look back at my life in here, and I've actually almost started over. Not financially, but I've gone in, I've gone deals. I'm buying a property tomorrow I went to see. I drove properties. I'm contacting people from 10 years ago when I was in Chicago, right? And I'm going back, and it made me realize that, like, if this thing doesn't happen, I probably don't meet you. And maybe I meet you at the live event, but I have a security detail, and you know, and I go in, maybe I take a picture. But I wouldn't know you on the level that I have now. And that's the highest paid wealth coach in the world. I never did one-on-one coaching anymore because I didn't want to do it. And you have to pay me an insane amount of money because it was too easy. But I got a chance to coach you. I know your business very well. You know, I connected with you. I've connected you with some people. And that never would have happened. So out of chaos comes opportunity. And this has been a time to build relationships and find out what's important to me. So I know, it sounds cliche, but I get more joy when other people become successful because I know I can do anything. Well,
it's really interesting too. When Paulie called me after we did our coaching session that weekend, and he told, like, I was on the phone with him like an hour and 15 minutes, and he told me the story of how you basically pulled him out of the hall, and brought him up to the stage. He's in his track pants, and you just like saw something in him. And look at him now; he's a multi-millionaire. You've coached him for like eight or 9 years. Huge success, and now you're doing like a 5-hour real estate today.
He's Canadian. He's from Montreal too. Right? And by the way, je parle très bien français aussi. Just want to put that out there.
Okay, no, that's that's fantastic. It's amazing the whole story. I wanted to ask you an interesting question. So I know you had a rough time growing up, and you mentioned bullying. There's a picture of you as a 13-year-old with your tie in that. I wanted to see, what would you tell your 13-year-old self if you saw him sitting on a bench, kind of his head down, you sat down beside him? What advice would you give to that 13-year-old?
One day they'll all pay you a lot of money and they're all going to want to be you.